Chris, you have spent a lot of time inside that brain trust with people like Jeff Allen and Scott Cochran. And as we say hello to you, first your reaction, and then we'll get underneath the tent and see what's really going on. Good afternoon.
Paul, it's good to be with you, man. A lot of Bama news here the last week or so. I'm not totally surprised that Cochran's leaving, and this is why I say this. I think this is something Scott has been thinking about now for a year or two. He talked with Lane Kiffin when Lane got the Ole Miss job about possibly moving into some type of on-the-field role with Lane. I actually had a chance to talk with Coach Saban in the last 10 or 15 minutes, and he said, listen, there's no question that Scott Cochran was a big part of what we did here at Alabama. A guy that did a really good job for a long time. But Scott wanted a different career path. Had been looking to maybe get on the field and maybe one day be a head coach. I think that maybe is down the road something Scott would like to do. He said, we really didn't right here at Alabama right now have anything for him along those lines. Not that he can't be at some point a head coach or a really good position coach, a special teams coach, which is what he's going to coach at Georgia. But right now, where we are at Alabama, I didn't have anything to give him. So Kirby did, and so here we are. I've said many, many times, I've said on your show, I always felt like one of the most underrated parts of that dynasty under Coach Saban was that combo, Scott Cochran, the strength coach, and Jeff Allen, his trainer. Those two guys, the way they worked in concert, their chemistry, the way they communicated and worked under Nick Saban. Jeff Allen's now the last guy remaining, the last football staff remaining that came with Nick there in 2007. So, yeah, this is absolutely a big deal. I don't know that it's, one of these deals where we've seen the last of Alabama competing at the highest level. I think Nick Saban has proven over the years that he can adapt with anybody, and I think he'll continue to adapt. But I think that's what happened. I think Scott wanted to go down a different career road. He saw that opportunity at Georgia, not so much at Alabama, and that's where we are right now.
Aside from what he was thinking about career-wise, what he wanted or didn't want to do, Chris, take us through the prism of the last 12 years and what and where has Scott Cochran helped and meant the most?
Well, in a lot of ways, he was the soul of that program, the heartbeat. Nobody spent – you can say this about any strength coach. Mickey Marotti at Florida with Urban, then at Ohio State with Urban, now with Ryan Day at Ohio State. Those guys spend more time with the players than anybody. And the tone is set. Now, granted, the head coach sets the tone. Make no mistake, Nick Saban's always going to be the guy that sets the tone. But the way you get guys ready to play in the weight room, physically, those are the areas, in the summer and the off season where you win. And Alabama won a lot of championships, in their off-season program, in their strength program, and Scott leading the way. Scott was with Nick for all 6 of his national titles, Paul. He was there as an assistant strength coach at LSU in 2003. He understood and understands, what Nick Saban wants. But I think if you look at it, too, from Nick Saban's point of view, if Scott is indeed at that point in his career and his life where he's ready to do something else, I don't know that you try to jam a square peg into a round hole and keep him just for the sake of keeping him if he's not doing what you want him to do as strength coach, if he's wanting to be a position coach or potentially be a head coach. I think that's probably what happened here. But, it's a big loss. He did a great job for a long time. And, again, I don't think there's no way to underestimate or devalue his worth and Jeff Allen's worth and the way they worked with Nick Saban together over these last 13 years.
You know what a lot of people will say on both sides. From the Alabama side, and you said you talked to Nick Saban, where he will. Do I understand correctly? He'll tell the team and move, and he'll start moving on from here. But you also understand what the pundits will say, Chris. I'm sure Nick Saban will cringe as much or as little as he pays attention to pundits, but he is in a more vulnerable position today than he's been in a while.
Well, because Kirby Smart, his former assistant, None of Nick's former assistants have been able to beat him on the field, but Kirby has come and gotten one of his most prized commodities, his strength coach. Absolutely. The optics of it, and that's exactly the way around college football, Paul, it's going to look. And Nick, he doesn't, newsflash, he doesn't really care what you or me or anybody else thinks or says, but he understands that's what the optics will be. And Kirby did. He came and got a guy that had been with him, as I said, for all six in some capacity, all six of his national championships. Now, Kirby and Scott share a very, very close relationship going back to when they worked together at Alabama. Their wives were friends. They remained close over the years. Kirby tried to hire, when Kirby got the Georgia job, he tried to hire Scott as his strength coach, and he was not able to do so. Now he's been able to hire him in an on-the-field role as his special teams guy, so a little bit different dynamic there. But, no, you're right. That's exactly the way it will be looked upon around college football. And I'll say this, the other thing in talking to Nick today, he says, listen, we're getting ready to open our new sports science building, state-of-the-art facility. Nick said it's supposed to be ready this fall. He said, I think we have and as only he can say it, I think we've got a pretty good chance to go out and get one of the best people out there in strength and conditioning with everything we have to offer, this new building opening, and I'd say they will.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports and analysis, download the ESPN app, and for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.